I'm Vaneet.
And I'm Lo.
And for March, it is Bi-Mental Health Awareness Month in America. So we are going to do a series of videos talking about the issues that bisexual people face and then the impact that it has on their mental health.
So Bi-Mental Health Awareness Month was started by the Bi-Resource Center, which is an American organization for spreading bi-resources. And they noticed that there was mental health outcome disparities amongst bisexual people. We experienced much worse mental health. And so part of the campaign, because it's American, is about getting people to sign up with healthcare providers, whether that's through insurance or however healthcare in America works. We don't really know.
Thank God for the NHS.
Thank God for the NHS. So the Bi-Resource Center has some really great resources to help you find where you can get mental health support in the American healthcare system, which of course is a nightmare.
So for this episode, we're just going to discuss the basics, as I like to call them. So we're going to talk about what is biphobia, what is bi-erasure, and then some of the examples of this.
Yes.
So do you want to start by saying what is bi-erasure?
Bi-erasure. So bi-erasure is the structural or sometimes incidental erasure of bisexual lives and experiences. So the system that we have, particularly here in the West, for categorizing sexuality is very binary. It follows our binary categorization of gender, and it suggests that you only can be straight or you can only be gay. We've talked about this a lot casually in other videos, but when that comes to healthcare and resources and support, it means that bisexual people are often completely ignored because healthcare is either directed for people who are gay or straight. And it's not just healthcare, it's everything. It's representation that we've talked about, it's resources, it's every part of life. Bisexual lives are completely ignored, basically.
And then that sort of feeds into what biphobia is, which is the it's basically, everyone knows what homophobia is, right? It's people not liking or not respecting gay people based on the fact that they identify for something that's not straight. Bisexual people experience a different level, so we also experience homophobia, but when we experience a different level called biphobia, which is not respecting us because of the fact that we do not fit within either straight or gay. And we get this from both ends because people will say, well, you're not straight, or you are straight and you're just lying to yourself, or you're not gay, or you are gay but you're just lying to yourself. And it kind of feeds into a lot of different ways and has its own impact.
Yeah, so the academic system for talking about this is known as monosexism, which is the idea that the only stable categories you could be are gay or straight, and that bisexuality is seen as a threat to the stability of those two categories, because in order in our system to prove that you're straight and have access to straight privilege, you just have to show interest in a different gendered person. You be married or you have relationships, and then to be gay you have to show interest in a same gendered person. And if you bring bisexuality into that, it's much harder to prove that you're either of those categories. So somebody who's married, say if we were married, you could assume that we were straight, but actually both of us are bisexual, both of us could have relationships with same gendered people. And so it'd be a lot harder for straight people to access straight privilege if they acknowledge that bisexuality exists. And often biphobia within the gay community comes from the fact that it's a lot harder to organise around gay issues when you don't know who the real gays are.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of biphobia that sprouted up in gay communities in kind of the 60s, 70s and 80s came from.
So we're just going to talk about some of the common questions, myths and ideas that people have. My favourite one, which is the one that I always get asked when I first come out as bisexual or tell someone I'm bisexual, is, which one do you prefer? Men or women? And first of all, there's more genders out there than men or women.
That's like saying to someone, oh, so you like ice cream, so do you like strawberry or chocolate? And you're like, well, what if I also like vanilla? And they're like, no.
Yeah, it's very that.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of different choices out there, and it's also, it's interesting, the question is always phrased in which do you prefer. It's never do you prefer, it's which do you prefer. Like, you've got to have a preference already. So they've already ruled out the fact that I might just like all of these things equally. It's like, you know, when people go, which is your favourite album for blah 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 band? I'm like, they don't just like them all equally in very different ways. And I think that's the thing that I find the most frustrating, is that I can't explain to you how I like all of these different genders, because attraction's not that easy. But I feel like they want a number.
I also find that often people are asking that because they putting you in the bisexual category, they don't have a category for that. So they have to ask you which gender do you prefer, men or women, so that they can put you in basically straight or basically gay.
Yeah.
Because having you in that bisexual category would challenge their worldview too much. So even though I kind of do have a preference, whenever people ask me that, I try and say no, just to force them to put me in the bisexual category.
Same, because I think it then feeds into a very insidious way of thinking, because it is very much like they're trying to say, you're basically gay, you're basically straight, and then they know whether to like include you or not, and then you then get mislabeled. So people will go, well, you know, if you have a preference that's more towards men, you're basically gay, and therefore I'm just going to call you gay. And it then gets into this very insidious way of thinking, where it's like, if I then experience an attraction to a woman or someone that's not a man, they will go, well, where is that coming from? It's like, I'm still bisexual. So asking me this idea of which one I prefer, kind of just a moot point. It's very meaningless, because at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that I am bisexual. Even if the attraction is like, I like women this much, and I like non-binary people this much, and I like agender people this much, and I like men this much, I could still end up falling in love with someone who's not a man.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. For me, as someone who's perceived as a bi woman, the one that I get the most is that bi women are down for anything. That, you know, we're just toys for your threesome. We don't say no. We're up for it all the time. We can't be satisfied by one gender, so we have to have all the genders. Which, when you look at the statistics about the just unbelievable rates of sexual violence committed against bi women, is such a terrifying stereotype. And also just not true. Like, obviously, bi women are not just down for anything. We're not all up for threesomes. It's cool if you are, but not everyone is. So for me, that's kind of the worst biphobic stereotype that I receive as a bi woman.
Yeah. I think the one that I find quite frustrating as well is the idea that you're always going to leave them for the other genders. It's always, well, what if you leave me and for a man? It's like, well, what if I leave you for a woman?
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like...
What about that?
Sometimes people leave relationships. What does it matter who it's for?
But it's like, it's this idea that, oh, they're going to leave me, and if they leave me and it's for a man, it's like, I knew they were gay. It's like, no, still bisexual. Still bisexual. It's just, I wanted to end the relationship with you. And that might be the reason why. I don't think that your biphobia might be the reason why I'm leaving, rather than I'm secretly gay.
It's always, and that one that like all bi people cheat, I think, is the big stereotype, right? That we are incapable of staying in a relationship. We're always going to go behind your back. We're always going to be having a fling on the side, which again is because of the idea that bi people are hypersexual and that we are just insatiable beings, which, like, I'm tired. I'm definitely not.
The one that I personally struggle with, and other people probably struggle with as a result, because of the fact that most of my sexual experience has been with men, well, all of them actually, I've only really kissed a woman, and that's about as far as it's gone. It's then feeds into this idea that I've just not come out yet. And I then get asked the question from gay men as well of, well, then how do you know? And I'm like, but shouldn't you know better than to ask someone that? Because then what does that mean for young gay people who come out? Does that mean that they don't actually know? Are we telling young queer people that they don't actually know their sexuality until they've had sex? Are we advocating for people to have sex when they're 10?
And also, does that mean that gay people think that they need to go and have sex with men and women and people of every other gender to... They have like a tick list of like, okay, I like this one, but I didn't like this one.
Just because that doesn't really make any sense, because just because you didn't like sex with that certain person, it's a personal thing as well. It gets really, really complicated, and people make it very messy and really uncomfortable, because I'm just like, but yeah, I don't understand where they're going with that, and then they constantly use that to try and raise my sexuality, and go, well, you know, you might have sex with a woman and not like it, and then what? Then you're not actually. And I'm like, maybe then it will change. You never know, but it doesn't mean I'm not bi now.
I used to, because I came out so young. I came out like 14 to like a lot of people in my school, which young Lo, what were you doing? But I used to get asked quite a lot, like, oh, how can you know if you've not like had sex with anyone yet? And I used to say to them, like, well, you know that you're straight, right? And they're like, oh yeah, of course I'm straight, blah, 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 blah. Well, how do you know? Like, people know what their sexuality is before they have sex with people. And we never question that for straight people, because that's just considered like the default.
Yeah.
And I think it is questioned a bit for gay people, but not as much as it is for bisexual people.
And it is that intrinsic tie to our sexuality being about sex, and not anything outside of sex, because it's emotions and it's feelings and it's desires and it's lust. It doesn't have to be the physical act of having sex. It's what you're attracted to, what you find appealing.
Something that I've written about before is that gay and straight are seen as identities. They're something that you are, whereas I think bisexuality is still seen as something that you do.
Yeah.
You do have relationships with different genders, and that's what makes you bisexual, and it's not seen as an innate identity or state as being not innate. That opens up a whole different discussion. But an internal identity, because my bisexuality, it's not just about who I'm attracted to, it's also about the community that I feel most comfortable in, and the politics that I feel most comfortable in. And I think in the gay and lesbian community, there's kind of a discourse that sees those things as much more intrinsic to gay and lesbian identities, whereas bisexuality is just seen as a bit wishy-washy.
Yeah. I think the thing that I find really interesting as well is that the way people think of bisexual people is very different depending on what your gender is. And I think it's weird because it's different, but it's also the same, because they seem to think that the male attraction trumps everything. It's like somehow everything is like the penis.
Phalliocentric.
That's the word. I think it's everything kind of centers around attraction towards men, and if you have an attraction towards men, somehow that then trumps any attraction to any other gender or any other being.
And I think it's important to note there that, like, obviously not all men have penises and not all women have vaginas, but mainstream culture and society does not recognise that.
No.
And so it's seen as that if you have an attraction to men, that must mean that you love dicks.
Yeah.
And therefore, and then like the penis is seen as so powerful that it completely changes who a woman is the first time you have sex with one. You stop being a virgin and you become, I don't know, whatever we're called after that. Sluts.
And I think that plays into sort of the bad representation that we were talking about, because it is that idea that once you've had sex with a man, that's it. For men, once you've had sex with a man, it's over, you're gay. There's no coming
over. It's over.
You're gay, there's no coming back from it, that's it, that's your identity now. You can't now then go and have a relationship with a woman, because it's like some like this. I don't know what it is. It's really weird.
As like a woman, relationships with men or having sex with men is seen as much more real.
Yeah.
It's seen as like those are the actual relationships that I'm meant to have so that I can fulfill my womanly purpose of having a baby.
Yeah.
And any relationships I have with women or non-binary people, although that's like not recognized,
No.
is seen as just like, have you experienced any other stereotypes?
I think the ones that I mentioned were probably the main ones because obviously I haven't been in a relationship, but it is often I'm in a space and everyone's a gay man and I'm like, no, not quite.
I think it's really important. You recently did some photo shoots for Him Meet Us, was it called?
Me, him, us, yeah.
Me, Him, Us, sorry, which was about HIV, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was really important that you were part of that because often, especially within like LGBT spaces, HIV and AIDS related healthcare are very much targeted at gay men. And I think it's really important that someone like you was involved in that because it affects bi men, it affects bi women, it affects trans people. And again, that's like an issue of bi-erasure, that bi people's healthcare isn't considered in something as big as HIV healthcare.
Yeah, and I was making sure that I was reiterating that like they already had their little blurb and it already had gay and bi men, but I constantly made sure that I said to them that you have to make sure that no matter where you mention this, you always mention gay and bi, because if you're raising it, I don't want to be part of it. And it was really important that I was part of it because like even in the photo shoot, this little bracelet was just about seen, but in the pictures where there's no banner and stuff at the bottom, you see the full bracelet in it. And I was mentioning that like it is important that that is included, because otherwise you just assume it's a collection of gay men. And I do know that there are some of the people I have worked with before who are interested in trying to do some more stuff which is targeted specifically towards bisexual, and trying to make sure that there is some form of imagery that shows that it is a bisexual person involved in that. And it is, I think a lot of places do need to do more to make sure that there is conversation about bisexual people as well.
Because the man, Donnie the Punk, who started the first bisexual newsletter, which kind of incepted like the first bisexual groups, he actually died of HIV-related illnesses in the mid-90s. And there are so many other bi activists that I can mention right now who have died of HIV and AIDS. Like it decimated our community, not just bi men, but bi women, bi non-binary people. And the fact that like bisexuality is often erased from that discourse, I think is a very, very harmful type of biphobia and bi-erasure. Yeah,
I mean, we were even talking about our favourite icons, and Freddie Mercury also died of AIDS-related illnesses. So it's so important, but then he gets erased as a gay man, and they just kind of remove the fact that we were ever there.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to remember that we've always been here.
Yeah. The other type of biphobia that I've experienced, which I think sums up biphobia so well, was actually something that one of the first girls I dated said to me, which was, straight people don't want you because you're too gay, gay people don't want you because you're too straight. And I think that's exactly how bi people are seen. We can't fit into either of these communities because we're considered too much of the other, even though we're actually neither of those things.
Yes.
And that is one of the reasons why bi people have such at such high risk of like mental health illness, because we feel so excluded from A, like mainstream society for our queerness, but B, also queer communities, because we're not queer enough. And when you don't have like that place where you can be yourself or feel accepted, that has such a big impact on your mental health.
So I guess that'll be the topic for our next video.
Next video, we're going to talk about some statistics, we're going to talk about mental health care, and maybe our experiences with mental health and biphobia.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching.
And we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, and tell us below if you've ever experienced biphobic stereotypes or bi-erasure and how you coped with that, and maybe we can share some coping mechanisms with each other.
Make sure you like and subscribe.
Bye!
Bye.